All I gotta say is there must be a lot of people in the media in love with messed up jaws and screwed up families. Because for 2 weeks we've heard nothing but the Queen, the Queen, the Queen. I am so tired hearing about the Queen, aren't you? And if you go back in history and you look at all these royal families, these monarchs, they were mostly inbred. They suffered from mental and physical problems because of the inbreeding. Look at King Charles I. He couldn't close his jaw, he couldn't talk, he couldn't chew. If you're a journalist, that's what you should be doing. If you're in love with the royal family, you should be covering the royal family 24/7. And look at what's happening with the royal family now. King Charles III, he cheated on Diana with Camilla. Harry and Meghan, they left the royal family, moved to California. They don't want anything to do with these people. And their family, they don't want anything to do with their own family. Now, isn't that sad? And I was watching the sermon, because I was doing the overnight shift, and with the time difference, I was able to catch this. I believe it's ABC News or some type of ABC sub-network. You know, the one that only 5 people watch in a hotel somewhere or an airport. But they were showing this whole ceremony where they were swearing in King Charles III. And William's there, and William looked tired, like he didn't want to be there. But I have an article here at NBC News I want to share it with you. And there's been this debate here on YouTube. About whether or not, and I talked about this in a previous video. If you're new to this thing we call the Cultural Confederacy, welcome. But I talked about this in a previous video, how there's this ongoing debate, and it's still going on, if you haven't caught this yet. This debate about whether or not we should have flown our flag at half-staff for the Queen. And you know me, I hold nothing back. I had to chime in. And I said, are you crazy? Are you nuts? No, we should not be flying our flags at half-staff for the Queen, for a monarch. The only time that the American flag should be flown at half-staff for somebody who's a foreign leader is if that person was working in the service of the United States, alongside the United States, or involved in some type of international incident that involved people that were hurt or killed from the United States. That's the only time that that flag should fly at half-staff for somebody who is not a U.S. citizen. Sorry, but American citizens come first, and rightfully so. But this article here at NBC News talks about how a good chunk of the population in Great Britain, and we're not talking some type of far left or right-wing movement here, 1,000 people there. We're talking a good chunk of the population, about 22%. That equates to roughly 10 million people in Great Britain want to do away with the monarchy. And this is so refreshing to see. And we love you guys across the pond, our brothers and sisters across the pond, but you're about 250 years behind the times on this issue. We got away from the monarchy in Great Britain for a reason. So it says here, with the royal succession complete, some Britons renew their calls for the abolition of the monarchy. Quote, we wanted to make it clear that there's more than one viewpoint about the monarchy in this country. And this is an article by Alicia Victoria Lozano and Alexander Smith, came out yesterday the 25th. Ooh, it's a collaboration. NBC has got a collaboration going on here. You mean to tell me, NBC, it took 2 people to write this article? You just couldn't have one person write this article? I mean, if these 2 people wanted to work on this article together, okay, fine. But you just couldn't have one person write this article? Maybe it's time NBC News gets some new talent? What do you think? So it says here, NBC News London, it may have felt like the United Kingdom was brought to a supportive standstill after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, but not everyone in these aisles agrees that a hereditary monarch should remain the unelected head of state in a modern democracy. I absolutely agree with that. Polls suggest that a significant minority, millions of Britons, want to abolish the monarchy. Many of these people kept quiet last week out of respect for the Queen, unlike the protesters in 2020 who had to get out their cell phones and have their 15 minutes of fame during the whole George Floyd incident. But a few braved the crowds to bring a defiant message for their newly ascended sovereign, not my king. These Republican rumblings are not new, but many campaigners believe King Charles III presents a unique opportunity. They think most royalism was actually fondness for the widely loved king, and he, a new, less popular king, won't inherit the support. And I think that King Charles is going to be somewhat of a weak leader. He's going to make some missteps. That's just my humble opinion. I mean, how do you follow in the footsteps of somebody who ruled for 70 years and was quite popular, as was the case with QE2? The debate has made for some febrile scenes as thousands crammed into the historic streets of Edinburgh to see Charles being proclaimed monarch in Scotland on September 11th, of all days. And that's the other thing that got me. Did you notice this? There was more coverage of Queen Elizabeth II on September 11th, the anniversary of September 11th, than there was on September 11th. I'm sorry, but something is seriously wrong with that picture. A small group of naysayers booed, held anti-royal placards, and turned their backs while declaring no consent. One woman who held a sign saying F imperialism was arrested for a breach of the peace, and all were met in turn with boos followed by chants of God save the king. I think it's been so ingrained in the British psyche that they must have a monarch. They must have a king. Granted, the monarch doesn't have the same weight it did, let's say, in the time of the American Revolution. They're more of a figurehead now. But I'm pretty sure that this whole movement of getting away from the monarchy in Great Britain, it's going to start to gain steam. Quote, we wanted to make it clear that there's more than one viewpoint about the monarchy in this country, said John Hall, 33 of a half dozen protesters. I wanted to be here and mark the fact that I did not consent to this pageantry. And that's pretty much what it is. It's all pageantry. The anti-royalist crew outside Edinburgh's St. Giles Cathedral was among a smattering of protesters who dotted the United Kingdom, popping up in London, Wales, and elsewhere. Let me take a sip of my coffee here. They often drew an angry reaction from the mourners and spectators who had come out to see the Queen make her final journey from Balmoral Castle in the Scottish Highlands, where she died, to Windsor Castle, west of London, where she was buried Monday. Many of the activists interviewed by NBC News across the country said they didn't want to disrupt the mourning period, that they would not be protesting at events commemorating the Queen specifically. But they felt they had no choice but to make their voices heard because Charles's ceremonial appointment, a highly political event, they argue, was happening at the same time. Now, this is key. Here's their argument. The crux of their argument is that the lottery of birth has no place deciding the head of state of one of Europe's largest economies. Amen. Absolutely agree with that. You should not have this lottery of birth, and nobody has a chance to run for office in Great Britain. It's got one of the most vibrant economies in the world, alongside the United States and some other areas. And I would argue that without the United States, Great Britain, some of these other areas, you would not have a world economy. So having a monarchy in the 21st century seems somewhat out of place, given how Great Britain has changed over the past century. They also say that the monarchy costs the British taxpayer hundreds of millions of pounds a year, and this is in parentheses. This is disputed by monarchists. Well, of course, because they're monarchists, who say the royal, quote-unquote, brand brings in a net gain from tourism and culture. Brings in a net gain from tourism and culture. But I can guarantee you far more money is being made trading on the stock market in Great Britain, or however they do it over there. And you have the exchange of goods and services. More money is being made from that than from tourism and culture regarding the monarchy. Then there are those who disagree with the message it sends. While anyone in theory can be President of the United States, only select few people can be Britain's head of state. And now we're starting to see that change a little bit. Because as the old saying goes, money is the mother of politics, mother's milk of politics. For critics, this is part of a rigid class system that tactically tells Britons no matter how hard you work, it still matters who your parents are. The beauty of the United States. You can be anything you want in the United States of America, even run for office. These views are not as fringe as suggested by the mass crowds and the wall-to-wall coverage of the Queen's passing. Which, let's admit it, went a little overboard. I mean, should we have wall-to-wall coverage of King Charles III picking his nose? There's a headline for you. King Charles III picks his nose in the tea room at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock is tea time in Great Britain, if you didn't know. The monarchy is widely but not universally popular. Around 62% of people in Britain support it. But listen to this, 22%, translating to more than 10 million British adults, want to see it replaced with an elected leader, according to a poll by YouGov in June. Now, abolitionism has gradually grown since the 1990s, according to the National Center for Social Research, a London-based institute that has conducted surveys on the monarchy over the past 30 years. And royal popularity has been rocked by events such as Charles's divorce from Princess Diana and his family's perceived coldness after her death in a car crash, the institute said, as well as allegations of sexual assault against Prince Andrew, which he denies, and the decision by Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, to move to California amid their allegations of racism against the royal household. So this is at NBC News. You've got this percentage of the population in Great Britain that wants to do away with the monarchy. And I'm glad to see this. But again, you guys are about 250 years behind the times on this. I think there's maybe some romanticism when it comes to this idea of monarchy. You think of the royal wedding, all these ceremonies, the clothes. And let's be honest here, it looks good on camera. It really does. It looks really good on camera. But I thought I'd share this with you. Title of the article again, with the royal succession complete, some Britons renew their calls for the abolition of the monarchy. And this is a story again by Alicia Victoria Lozano and Alexander Smith. Came out yesterday. But I want to cover this because this goes to show you the beauty of this thing we call the United States. The idea that we don't have to rely on a monarchy. That the American people can determine who they elect, how they spend their money, how the government should spend our money. That's a beautiful thing. The exchange of ideas, a unique part of American culture. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what to do. You can also follow me at Instagram, #JasonComposes, or find me at Twitter, Culture Confederacy at Twitter. This is the Culture Confederacy saying peace out, stay safe, everybody. God bless this great country, and I'll catch you next time.